Linju fruit, the most important spirit herb for refining the creation pill. For Hanli of the Nascent Soul stage and Zi Ling of the core formation stage, it helps break through bottlenecks. They entered the number 1 forbidden land of Tianan, the fallen demon valley. This is the Linju fruit. Hanli stood in an oasis concealed by a restrictive seal. Staring at the green lake before him, he murmured to himself. Outside the seal was an endless expanse of earthy yellow, a vast desert stretching for tens of thousands of miles. That's right, it's definitely this fruit. Both its appearance and the markings point to this very Linju fruit. Indeed, Zi Ling, standing a short distance from Hanli, said with a hint of excitement on her face. Her pair of bright eyes sparkled brilliantly as she stared at the green lake ahead without blinking. And in the middle of the lake, a few hundred feet in front of them, was a small patch of silt breaking the water's surface. A spirit herb, so vividly green it seemed to be dripping, grew there. The herb was several feet tall. It was covered in oval leaves the size of a thumb, and at the very top of this herb grew 4 strange, solitary fruits. These fruits were fiery red all over, narrow at the top and wide at the bottom. The top shimmered with a faint red glow, closely resembling a red candle lit on a candlestick. It also emitted a thick, medicinal fragrance. Hanli was also certain in his heart. This was undoubtedly the spirit candle fruit. Hearing Zi Ling say this, he just gave a faint smile. I'll go over and pick this fruit now. Best to avoid any unexpected delays. Zi Ling took a deep breath. With a flick of her sleeve, she was ready to act on her suggestion to Hanli. Don't be so hasty. This spirit grass has been here for so many years. It's impossible for it to not have something guarding it. Otherwise, even with the illusion formation providing cover, the spirit fruit would have been devoured by other bone beasts long ago. Hanli was equally excited inside, but on the outside, he appeared exceptionally calm. At this moment, he replied in an unhurried manner, Brother Han, you mean there's still a bone beast here? A guardian? Zi Ling had already heard Hanli briefly mention the existence of the demonic bones, and matters concerning ancient Yao beasts. Therefore, upon hearing his words, she was startled. Her mind instantly cleared up considerably. That's right. Look at the top of that spirit grass. There are 2 spots with obvious chew marks. It seems 2 of the spirit fruits have been swallowed whole by the guardian beast on 2 occasions. If the spirit candle fruit is consumed raw, although it won't trigger a breakthrough in one's cultivation realm, it still has some effect on overcoming bottlenecks. No wonder that thing didn't devour it all at once, Hanli said slowly. Then his gaze swept across the area by the green lake. He turned to look at the small surface of the lake. Without a doubt, if something was hiding nearby, it would definitely be hidden in the lake. After entering the inner valley, Hanli took off the cloak from his head. On the way here, while displaying his skills, he hadn't hidden his bright-sight spirit eyes from Zi Ling. After all, she had already guessed he had a way to avoid the spatial rifts, so there was no need to hide anything from her. Therefore, after sweeping his divine sense through the lake water, and not finding anything unusual, a blue light flashed in Hanli's pupils. His gaze instantly penetrated several tens of yards deep into the lake water, reaching straight to the bottom of the green lake. His expression shifted. What is it, Brother Han? Have you found something? Zi Ling, who had been carefully watching Hanli's expression, raised her elegant eyebrows, and asked with a slight frown, You should step back a bit. This guardian ancient beast seems a bit tricky. I'm afraid I'll have to use some special methods to deal with it. Hanli's expression returned to normal in an instant. He turned his head and said lightly to Zi Ling, the ancient beast in the lake, to actually have a way to evade his divine sense scan. Hanli naturally regarded them more highly. Then I'll have to trouble you, Brother Han. Zi Ling knew her own cultivation was low. Staying by Hanli's side would only be a hindrance. She wisely agreed. She immediately flew back 30 to 40 jong. Before coming to a stop, her escape light hovered motionlessly in the air. Once Hanli saw Zi Ling move aside, he reached for his waist without hesitation. 3 spirit beast pouches were cast into the air one after another. Then, he formed an incantation seal with both hands. Tens of thousands of golden flying insects swarmed out from the 3 pouches. They danced and filled the sky, blotting out the heavens and obscuring the sun. The sky in a radius of dozens of yards was transformed into a strange, brilliant golden color. Zi Ling, who saw this scene from a distance, upon seeing this terrifying spectacle, couldn't help but let out a soft gasp of surprise. That Hanli knew an insect-controlling art. This woman naturally knew. She had even been in the Sutia Palace before, and during the battle with the successor of the Sixth House, she had witnessed it with her own eyes twice. But now, these flying insects that had almost evolved into their mature forms, compared to the gold-devouring beetles from back then, whether in terms of size or color, They were far beyond what they used to be. Now, these had doubled in size. The glittering golden devouring worms had a formidable appearance. Tens of thousands of them were released by Han Li at once. Their presence was truly extraordinary. With Zi Ling caught off guard, it was only natural for her to be shocked. Han Li, however, had no time to pay attention to Zi Ling's shock. After deploying the devouring worms, he gave a great flick of his sleeve. 36 green bamboo cloud swords shot out from his sleeve in a stream. They transformed into dozens of foot-long blades of light. The golden light spiraled and danced beneath the cloud of worms. He continuously cast several incantation seals into the air. All the golden sword lights trembled a few times, and immediately split into over 100 identical beams of sword light. At the same time, they shone with a brilliant light. Han Li pointed a finger at the sword lights in the air. He let out a low cry. The hundreds of sword lights trembled in the air, and began to vanish one by one from their positions in a strange manner. In the blink of an eye, the space beneath the insect cloud became completely empty. The great sword formation was instantly set up by him all around. Han Li pursed his lips. Only then did he truly feel at ease. He looked down at the surface of the lake. A flash of green light flickered across his face. He rubbed his hands together. A brilliant golden light erupted, and a loud clap of thunder resounded. A fist-sized golden orb of electricity appeared between his two hands, and it gradually grew larger under Han Li's icy gaze, becoming dazzlingly bright. In an instant, the electric orb grew to the size of a child's head. With a push of his hands, amidst a deafening roar, the electric orb shot out with a sizzle, and struck the surface of the lake over 100 feet in front of him. A brilliant golden light flashed wildly. A massive thunderclap rang out. The electric orb exploded. The entire surface of the lake was instantly covered in electric arcs of varying thickness. A continuous crackling sound filled the air. Watching from behind, Zi Ling's heart shuddered. Her bright eyes flashed with astonishment. The golden light on the lake had not yet faded, when the surface of the lake suddenly began to churn violently. A massive vortex, the size of a tree canopy, suddenly emerged in the middle of the lake, accompanied by a muffled, low roar that came from the bottom of the lake. A surge of black and white demonic energy shot out from the vortex. Vaguely enshrouded within it was a bizarre-looking bone beast. This bone beast had a peculiar appearance. Its 65 to 75-foot-long body resembled a pile of black, rotten flesh. Its surface was covered with pitted holes of varying sizes. In the middle was a gigantic, head-like ball of flesh. It was slightly raised. Besides a single pitch-black eyeball, it had no other organs whatsoever. At the very least, he couldn't see a mouth, a nose, or anything of the sort. All in all, the appearance of this bony beast was truly nauseating. Even Han Li felt a wave of disgust upon seeing it. In the distance, when Zi Ling saw this bony beast's appearance, her face turned even paler. She looked completely horrified. However, this bone beast enveloped in black and white energy was something Han Li had never heard of before, nor had he ever seen it recorded in any ancient text. He couldn't help but glance over at Zi Ling. The woman gave Han Li a wry smile. Obviously, she didn't know the beast's origin either. Facing a creature of such unknown origins, Han Li, being cautious, was not about to slowly probe its background and allow it to unleash some kind of divine ability. So, he immediately raised his hand and cast a spell seal into the dense cloud above. At the same time, a long, clear chant echoed from his mouth. Instantly, the sky-filling swarm of insects began to buzz loudly and rapidly converged towards the center. It immediately formed into a gigantic insect cloud, which descended to bear down upon the bone beast. The bone beast heard the droning of the golden insects. It seemed to know that things were not looking good. Its body immediately shot forward with a darting motion. From the orifices on its body, it sprayed an unknown emerald green liquid, aiming for the golden cloud in the sky. A nauseatingly foul stench spread out in all directions. Han Li frowned at first, but then his brow relaxed, because the ones hit by this green liquid were the golden insects. They were completely unaffected, without the slightest bit of damage, and after that golden cloud descended, it immediately enveloped the bone beast. But the beast's body was protected by black and white che. Although it was submerged within the golden swarm, it was not in any immediate danger. The beast saw the countless flying insects desperately tearing at it, tearing at the black and white che it had spent many years of arduous cultivation to refine, and in the blink of an eye, a small portion was ripped away. It became greatly alarmed. Its body sank as it charged downwards, about to plunge back into the lake water. But just at this moment, the well-prepared Han Li suddenly pointed a finger towards the lake. With a soft hiss from his fingertip, a walnut-sized blue fireball appeared there. Then, the deathly fingers flicked gently. A blue fireball immediately shot out. With a sizzling sound, After the fireball exploded, the blue light was blinding. Immediately, a layer of blue, chilling mist spread out rapidly. Wherever it passed, the lake water turned into a thick layer of ice. In an instant, the entire green lake was frozen into a block of ice. The bone beast planned to dive into the water, was naturally foiled. Instead, it slammed headfirst into the blue ice, and was thrown back. The beast was now even more terrified. Its black and white aura shuddered violently. Carrying the dense swarm of golden insects on its body, it tried to fly away and escape. But in a flash, just as it reached the edge of the green lake, in the seemingly empty air, a golden light flickered. A golden thread as thin as a hair bizarrely appeared. It streaked towards the bone beast and vanished in a flash. A small piece of pitch-black rotten flesh fell from its body, dripping with blood. The bone beast's protective shield, formed from black and white chi, was instantly sliced through. That bone beast had a small chunk of its body cut away by the golden thread. With its protective shield gone, the countless golden insects swarmed over it. In an instant, they swarmed all over the skeletal beast's body. The skeletal beast immediately let out a piercing shriek. Spiritual light flickered across its body. With a whoosh, a layer of eerie green fire erupted, appearing on the surface of its body. It engulfed all the golden insects that drew near, completely shrouding them within it, burning fiercely. Unfortunately, this bath of fire was a powerful divine ability the beast had painstakingly cultivated for years. But these were gold-devouring beetles. They paid no heed to this level of demonic fire. Instead, it only provoked their ferocity. The flying insects simultaneously sped up their devouring. Instantly, the beast was overcome with unbearable pain. It immediately flashed in another direction, and desperately fled towards the other side of the green lake. Hanli stood at the edge of the lake, his hands clasped behind his back, coldly watching the skeletal beast enveloped by the cloud of insects, flying and bumping around chaotically like a headless fly. Unfortunately for it, he had already laid a formation here, the Great Zheng Sword formation. Although he hadn't fully activated the formation to annihilate the beast, it still meant that no matter where the beast fled, golden threads transformed from sword light would appear, and viciously slice off a piece of the skeletal beast's body. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the beast's body was gone. Its shrieks also became weak and feeble. Finally, with a thud, it landed on the surface of the ice. It was unable to move an inch. The true divine ability of this unnamed bone beast was actually its shape-shifting. Once it used this divine ability to transform, it could hide anywhere without a trace. Even late-stage cultivators could not discover its tracks. In terms of combat, it could only be called average. Unfortunately, this beast was first seen through by Hanli's bright clarity spirit eyes. Then, it was bewilderedly targeted by the gold-devouring beetles, and trapped by the Great Zheng Sword formation. It was completely unable to use its innate talent to escape, and just like that, it died easily, at the hands of Hanli. A moment later, the golden cloud of beetles flew brightly up into the sky. The surface of the ice was suddenly empty. All that remained was a strange, black and white-colored round bead. It was this beast's demon core. At this time, Zi Ling flew forward. With a look of envy, she said shyly to Hanli, "Your divine abilities are truly unfathomable now. Even when killing this kind of ancient demonic beast, you do it so effortlessly. It seems the rumors from the outside world that Brother Han is the most powerful person beneath the three great cultivators are not false after all. It is not that my abilities are so great. Rather, this bone beast was not very powerful. Compared to the other bone beasts I have seen before, it was far inferior." Hanli shook his head disapprovingly, then he raised a hand and grabbed at the empty air. With a whoosh, the demon core was sucked into his hand. Hanli looked down at his hand. Black and white spiritual light flickered unstably on the surface of the demon core. It was the first time he had ever seen a demon core of this color. He couldn't help but show a look of interest. But he had important matters to attend to. Hanli naturally wouldn't study this demon core right now. Immediately, his palm turned over and a green light flashed. The item vanished without a trace. Hanli raised his hand again. He brought out 3 empty spirit beast pouches. He made a gesture to summon them from the sky. A long cry issued from his mouth. Instantly, a loud buzzing erupted from the swarm of insects. After forming into 3 golden clouds, they all flew back into the 3 spirit beast pouches. Hanli put them away one by one. As for the Great Zheng metal sword formation, Hanli recalled it. With a single move, it reverted into 36 golden flying swords. After shrinking, they flew into his sleeve on their own. "Let's go pick the Lin fruits. We need to be quick. I don't know how long the illusion formation I set up earlier can confuse the cultivators from the ghost spirit sect," Hanli said. it transformed into a streak of cyan and red light and flew towards the center of the lake. Seeing this, Zi Ling hurriedly followed behind. A moment later, Han Li and Zi Ling appeared a short distance above the spirit grass. After his gaze swept over the top of the spirit grass, Han Li did not rush to pick it. Instead, he turned and calmly said to Zi Ling beside him, "You can pick it first. Be extra careful. This spirit pearl fruit is quite peculiar. It must be stored in something made of wood, otherwise, its medicinal properties cannot be preserved for more than a few days." "Thank you for the reminder, Brother Han. I will be extra careful." Zi Ling suppressed the excitement in her heart. After giving Han Li a charming smile, she said softly, without hesitation, she flicked her fragrant sleeve. An emerald green wooden box appeared in her delicate hand. She then extended a slender finger and swiped at the empty space below. Instantly, a flash of white light streaked past. A spirit pearl fruit immediately fell, but the woman, already prepared, flipped the wooden box in her hand. A brilliant white glow swept out from within the box. It instantly pulled the spirit fruit into the box. Then, she waved a hand over the box. The lid then closed on its own. After finishing all of this, Zi Ling finally let out a long sigh of relief. She then carefully placed the lotus into her storage bag. "Why don't you take another one, Miss Zi Ling?" Seeing this, Han Li was slightly taken aback. A strange look appeared on his face. "Thank you for your kind intentions, Brother Han. However, taking just one is enough for me. To be able to reach this place this time, other than scouting for some information at the very beginning, I didn't contribute any real effort at all. It was all thanks to Brother Han's divine abilities that we obtained this spirit fruit. Although I have some friendship with Brother Han, I can't be so shameless as to divide this fruit equally. You should take the rest, Brother Han. After all, besides being used to refine the creation pill, consuming it raw also has other wonderful effects. It can even increase one's cultivation level slightly," Zi Ling said with a captivating smile. Hearing such sensible words from Miss Zi Ling, Han Li was somewhat surprised. To be honest, this famous beauty from the chaotic Star Sea, although she was charming and beautiful, she was the most stunning female cultivator he had ever seen. This woman was also incredibly cunning, but after the marvelous sound sect was taken over, her temperament had become somewhat paranoid. This had made Han Li want to keep his distance, but now, for her to say such rational things, whether she was being sincere or just trying to get on his good side, this greatly improved Han Li's impression of this woman. After all, when faced with such a heavenly spirit fruit, to still be able to restrain the greed in one's heart is not an easy feat in itself. Since Miss Zi Ling has said so, then I, Han, will not stand on ceremony. Han Li nodded. He didn't stand on ceremony at all. He immediately slapped his waist with one hand. A flash of white light appeared. A wooden box that had been prepared long ago appeared in his hand. At the same time, he gently waved his other hand. A patch of green light then shone upon 3 spirit fruits. The fruits trembled and fell off on their own, and were then immediately enveloped by the green light. Han Li guided them with a slight movement of his hand. The 3 spirit fruits were collected into the wooden box. "Let's go. We cannot stay here for long. Who knows when the people from the ghost spirit sect will track us to this place. Although I am not afraid of them, I do not wish to fight them here. After all, refining the elixir is more important." After Han Li put the wooden box away, he turned and said, "Of course, the spirit fruit cannot be left for too long, but we can't return the way we came. Otherwise, we might run into the people from the ghost spirit sect. We should just pick a random direction. After escaping for several thousand miles, let's find a secret place to refine pills. As for where to go, naturally, you should be the one to decide." Zi Ling blinked her beautiful eyes. She said softly with her ruby lips, "Where should we go?" Han Li frowned. He subconsciously glanced around. Suddenly, it seemed as if he remembered something. He pressed his storage pouch with one hand. A thin, scroll-like object appeared in his hand. It was precisely the one Han Li had obtained from that tattered green robe. The map of Fallen Devil Valley. He studied the map carefully. Then he surveyed his current surroundings and position. A look of surprise appeared on his face. The location of this desert seemed to be not too far from the mark on the map. After crossing this desert and flying for about 2 days, he should be able to reach the place marked on the map. Looking at the crude markings on the map, Han Li fell into contemplation. When Zi Ling saw that Han Li did not answer her question, but was instead staring at the object in his hand, an unknown, silk-like object, she couldn't help but find it a little strange. However, this woman was exceptionally intelligent. She didn't say anything to rush him. Instead, she quietly waited right there for Han Li's decision. "Come with me. We'll refine the elixir first." Han Li had made up his mind. He put away the map and said calmly. However, after he looked at the spirit grass before him, he suddenly frowned, and with a wave of his arm through the air, a flash of green light shot out. A small twig then fell. But the moment the twig touched the ground, it suddenly withered and turned yellow. In the blink of an eye, it turned to ash. Hanli lowered his head and saw this scene. A flicker of regret passed through his eyes. It seems what was recorded in the ancient texts was true. The roots of this Linju Guo are different from other spirit woods. It is one of the few spirit woods that are completely impossible to transplant. Once moved from its original location, the spirit wood will immediately wither and die. It's completely impossible to cultivate artificially. Hanli no longer hesitated, and with a wave of his hand, he released a flash of white light. Summoning the wind-riding chariot, he flashed onto the chariot in an instant. Seeing this, Zi Ling flew onto the chariot as well without another word. With a flash of white light, the wind-riding chariot transformed into a ball of light and shot through the air. In the blink of an eye, on the horizon in a certain direction, it became a small white speck of light. Hanli had already made up his mind. He would first find a place along the way to refine the creation pill. Then, he would quickly consume the pill and absorb its medicinal properties. After experiencing the miraculous properties of the creation pill, and once everything had gone smoothly, he would then go to the location marked on the map for a look, to see what kind of secret treasure was hidden there. After all, this map was so mysterious. If there was any treasure, it must be extraordinary. As long as it didn't seem too dangerous, Hanli would naturally not pass up the location on the map. About 2 hours later, at the location of the original oasis, the group from the Ghost Spirit sect finally arrived. But standing by the lakeside, gazing at the lake, which still showed no sign of melting, and at the empty spot in the lake where the spirit grass had been, the disciples of the Ghost Spirit sect all looked at each other in dismay, while the androgynous-looking elder's face turned livid. By this time, Hanli was already thousands of miles away. He was speeding towards the location marked on the map. Before long, he had left the desert region. An uneven, yellowish-green plateau appeared before him. Seeing this type of terrain appear, Hanli couldn't help but let out a sigh. This fallen Devil Valley, it surprisingly encompasses almost everything. The geography of the entire world seems to be encapsulated within it. It is truly an incredible thing. I just wonder if this terrain of the fallen Devil Valley came into being naturally, or if ancient cultivators formed it later using their immense divine powers. A little less than half a day later, Hanli steered the wind-riding chariot to a land of hills and mountain ranges. Looking at these rather short mountain peaks, Hanli immediately went hundreds of miles deep into the mountains, and finally found a small, ordinary-looking mountain peak. He stopped the wind-riding chariot. Fellow Taoist Zi Ling, this place will do. Let us split up to refine our pills. I have scanned this place with my divine sense. There shouldn't be any ancient restrictions or spatial rifts in existence. The vicinity is relatively safe. Hanli floated at a low altitude by the foot of the mountain, and said peacefully to Zi Ling, "Thank you very much, Brother Han. Then I shall take my leave." Zi Ling's gaze swept briefly across the surroundings, and she immediately responded with a smile. Then, her figure transformed into a streak of light, and shot swiftly towards another nearby mountain peak. It seems she is preparing to create a secret chamber for herself, to refine medicinal pills. Watching the woman, she entered the small mountain and vanished from sight. Only then did Hanli withdraw his gaze. With a flicker of his body, he flew out of the flying chariot. He landed a few dozen feet away from the wind-riding chariot. He formed a hand seal and beckoned towards the chariot. It rapidly shrank and was drawn directly into his sleeve. Hanli then transformed into a streak of azure and crimson light. He shot straight towards the middle of the small mountain before him. A moment later, at Hanli's command, dozens of flying swords began carving the mountain rock at once. A simple immortal's cave appeared before his eyes. At the cave's entrance, Hanli set up a small-scale formation array. Then he walked into the immortal's cave with a blank expression. To be on the safe side, he specifically released 7 or 8 core formation stage puppets to act as guardians behind the cave entrance, in case of any unexpected incidents. With these preparations made, Hanli finally entered a secret chamber with peace of mind. He tossed his storage bag into the air, under the pool of his spiritual sense. The many supplementary ingredients for the saponification pill he had already prepared, poured out in a flash of white, glowing light. Finally, Hanli also took out the item containing the spirit candle fruit, the wooden box, and a small, antique azure cauldron. He let them float gently in front of him. Hanli, he narrowed his eyes slightly and swept his gaze over these items. Took a deep breath. He sat down cross-legged on the spot. Although this was Hanli's first time refining the creation pill, with his near-grandmother level attainments in alchemy, he was naturally full of confidence. Besides, for this trip to the fallen Devil Valley, Hanli had made exceptionally thorough preparations. Whether it was the main ingredient, the Phosphor Lord fruit, or the other auxiliary ingredients, he had prepared many sets of them. It wouldn't matter even if he failed a few times. As for whether Zi Ling could use that one Phosphor Lord fruit to successfully refine a creation pill, Hanli wasn't very sure. After all, this woman had never revealed her alchemy skills in front of him. But since she only took one of the fruits, she must have some confidence. Thinking this in his heart, Hanli stared at the small, rapidly spinning cauldron before him. Without even blinking, suddenly, he opened his mouth, and a stream of azure nascent flame shot out from it. After circling the small cauldron once, in the blink of an eye, it enveloped the cauldron completely, and began to burn fiercely. A moment later, the small azure cauldron shimmered brilliantly within the flames, emitting an intensely hot aura. The entire secret chamber began to roil with heat waves. The temperature rose sharply. A cold glint flashed in Han Li's eyes. With a flick of his hand, he cast a spell seal onto the small cauldron. With a soft cracking sound, a clear light shot up from the cauldron towards the sky. The cauldron's lid flew off on its own, and after circling once, it hovered motionlessly above the small cauldron. Seeing this, Han Li summoned a square jade box before him. With a quick tap of his finger, the box's lid instantly vanished without a sound, revealing a dark, crystalline object inside. It was several inches in size and somewhat flat and round. Han Li gazed at the object for a moment, then made a grasping motion in the air. The crystal-like object immediately flew out of the jade box and stopped in midair, a few feet from the ground. Han Li casually flicked his finger. A faint light flashed past. A piece about 1/5 the size of the crystal silently fell off. Then, a flash of brilliant cyan light shot out from his sleeve. It wrapped around the fallen piece and with a flick, tossed it into the small cauldron. He then cast another spell seal at the crystal. It immediately fell back into the jade box. Han Li then ignored the object and used a spell to open another long, rectangular wooden box, revealing a section of an unknown spirit grassstalk, so verdant it seemed to be dripping with green. He also cast a spell, using a blade of light to shave off a small section, and placed it into the cauldron. Just like that, Han Li followed the formula, selecting from the various ingredients before him. After placing a portion of them into the cauldron, he finally took out one of the linju fruits. An azure gleam of light flashed. He divided it into 4 parts, took one, and placed it into the cauldron. Only then did Han Li turn to the motionless, floating cauldron lid. With a light tap of his finger, the lid fell straight down, sealing the small cauldron tightly. Han Li let out a soft breath. He opened his mouth again, and an azure flame shot out. Instantly, the azure flame flared up, and the temperature in the room rose significantly once more. At this moment, staring at the small cauldron in the flames, Han Li's 10 fingers danced unceasingly. He continuously formed one spell seal after another. Every single one struck the small cauldron without fail. Before long, waves of thunderous rumbles began to emanate from the small cauldron, and the sounds seemed to be getting louder and louder. Seeing this, Han Li raised an eyebrow. The speed of his hand seals changed, suddenly becoming sometimes slow and sometimes fast. The thunderous sound from within the cauldron also became high-pitched one moment, and low-pitched the next, appearing exceptionally strange. Han Li's expression was now wooden, but the blue light in his eyes flickered uncertainly. It was as if he could see directly through the cauldron's lid. Observing the condition of the pills inside the small cauldron, he wore an expression devoid of joy or sorrow. Time passed by, little by little, just as Han Li was engrossed in the arduous task of pill refining. At the altar in the basin, the group from the Ghost Spirit sect had finally ascended to the top of the several hundred Donghua altar. It's unknown what the ancient cultivators who built the altar were thinking. The restrictions on the altar stairs were truly outrageous. Starting from the bottom of the altar, with almost every certain height they climbed on the stairs, the gravity pressing down on them would immediately increase a great deal. So, when climbing from the bottom to the middle of the altar, this group of people had slowly spent a little over 4 hours. But to get from the middle of the altar to the top took them a full day and a night. They even had to stop and rest for half a day to recover their spiritual power. The Ghost Spirit sect master and the other Nascent Soul cultivators were fine, but the 3 core formation stage disciples barely made it to the top, because by the time they reached the last dozen or so steps, each step felt like it carried the weight of a mountain, pressing down upon their bodies. These cultivators had almost moved inch by inch to get here. Of course, the most relaxed one among them was naturally Wei Wuya. From beginning to end, the restriction was never seen to have any major effect on this late-stage Nascent Soul cultivator. He never once showed any sign of strain. After all, even when Wang Tiangu and the others reached the final stretch, they could only take one step at a time. Their expressions became quite strained. Of course, this display from Wei Wuya, when seen by the Ghost Spirit Sect Master, caused him to be secretly alarmed. He couldn't help but hold Wei Wuya in higher regard. Although the cultivation levels in their group varied, the Ghost Spirit Sect Master had deliberately made sure that they all reached the top of the altar at the same time. The moment they set foot on it, the pressure that felt as heavy as a mountain immediately vanished without a trace. Those few Ghost Spirit Sect disciples finally heaved a great sigh of relief. Although they had protective spiritual light shielding them, the journey from the bottom of the altar still left every one of them with sore backs and aching legs. Their entire bodies felt weak. This was a feeling they'd only had back when they were mortals. They hadn't experienced something like this in a very long time. After all, usually getting anywhere was something they could do in an instant. When had he ever suffered such pain? Wang Tiangu and the others paid no attention to all this. As soon as they set foot in this place, they immediately began to survey their surroundings non-stop. This place was over 300 feet wide. The ground was paved with exceptionally lustrous white jade bricks. In the center was a great altar table, 60 to 70 feet long. It was crafted from a beautiful, emerald green jade, and was exceptionally exquisite. The rest of the area was empty, but at the four corners of the altar stood a tall blue stone pillar. These pillars were about 100 feet tall. On the surface of each pillar were dense and intricate relief carvings. The runes looked gray and were difficult to comprehend. They were exceedingly ancient, and atop these stone pillars crouched a lifelike kiln stone statue, each with a different posture. They also emitted a faint spiritual glow, appearing to be quite extraordinary. Such simple things. The group naturally scanned over it all in an instant. Wei Wuya didn't find anything of any particular note. His brows furrowed involuntarily. His gaze couldn't help but slide sideways toward the Ghost Spirit Sect Master for a glance. The Ghost Spirit Sect Master, however, was raising his head to look at the sky, standing motionless with his hands behind his back. He seemed to have seen something interesting. Wei Wuya was surprised. He also glanced up at the sky. High up in the sky was a vast expanse of blood red. Slightly lower, multicolored glows floated and drifted about. Besides there being a few more wisps of light, there was nothing else out of the ordinary. Sect Master Wang, now that we are here, where is the entrance to the Spirit Bird Garden? Wei Wuya was blunt. He asked directly, fellow Taoist Wei, there's no need to be anxious. The entrance to this Spirit Bird Garden is naturally concealed by a restrictive spell, but the method to break the restriction is known only to the soul-shocking Tao from the painting. We just need to summon it and ask. The Ghost Spirit Sect Master replied calmly. I see. So it seems. This is also one of the deals you, fellow Taoist Wang, made with that King Kun. Reverend's incarnation. Wei Wuya's expression flickered. He said slowly, Heh. Fellow Taoist Wei is a smart man. This matter indeed involves some conditions. I promise the other party. Please wait a moment. Fellow Taoist, I will summon him out right now. The Ghost Spirit Sect Master said with a smile. He reached out and swept a hand across his sleeve. The silver-white scroll appeared floating in his hand. Wang Tiangu's gaze flickered. Without a word, he also walked over. This time, the Ghost Spirit Sect Master tossed out the scroll. It unrolled. A ball of green light flew out from within the painting. It immediately transformed into the form of a scholar. That's right. This is the place. I never thought I would one day truly be able to return here. The incarnation of Master King Kun appeared. He paid no attention to anyone. Instead, he excitedly looked around. His face was full of excitement. As agreed, I have brought you here to the altar. According to what you said, this place is the very center of the fallen Devil Valley. It is the entrance to Ling Miao Yuan. Now it is your turn to fulfill your promise. To open the entrance to Ling Miao Yuan. The Ghost Spirit Sect Master watched coldly, waiting until the scholar's expression had recovered a little. Then he said indifferently, You have already placed a restriction on me. Are you afraid that I might trick you? The entrance to Ling Miao Yuan is right above the altar. I am not lying to you about that. It's just that the restriction is a bit strange. I must be the one to personally perform the technique. After saying this, the scholar likewise looked up at the sky. He glanced at the glowing clouds above. He rubbed his hands together. A ball of grayish-white fire appeared in his hands. With another raise of his hand, the fireball shot straight toward the sky. However, as soon as this fireball reached the glowing clouds, it bizarrely vanished into thin air. Upon seeing this, the scholar nodded his head. He turned his head to look at the four surrounding stone pillars. Then, without wasting any more time, he said, Fellow Taoists, please inject some spiritual power into the four stone pillars. Then, as for the matter of breaking the restriction, you can just leave it to me. Upon hearing this, Wang Tiangu and the other two exchanged a glance. The master of the ghost spirit sect hesitated for a moment, then said in a deep voice, "All right, we shall do as fellow Taoist says. You three, go to those stone pillars. Junior brother Wang, we'll have to trouble you as well. As you command, sect master." The three disciples immediately bowed in agreement, and Wang Tiangu did not hesitate. He walked a few steps toward one of the stone pillars. Instantly, at the command of the ghost spirit sect's master, the four of them each extended a palm, pressing it against a stone pillar. They slowly channeled their spiritual power into them, through the stone pillars, then channeled spiritual power into the statues at the top. Before long, the four stone pillars began to emit a humming sound, and began to tremble slightly at the same time. Meanwhile, a spiritual light flickered on the kiln statues at the top. Their eyes suddenly lit up with a blood-red glow, as if they were about to come to life. When Wei Wuya saw this scene, he vaguely felt that the situation with these stone pillars seemed like something he had heard of somewhere before, but he couldn't recall it at the moment. A thoughtful expression appeared on his face. The ghost spirit sect master stood in his place, quietly watching this scene. Without saying a word, suddenly, the kiln statues slowly raised their hands in unison, and opened their great mouths. Inside, a five-colored radiance flickered unstably, as if something was about to be shot out. At this moment, the scholar with the ghostly body made his move. He raised both his hands, and with a flick of his fingers, four gray misty seals shot out, landing squarely on the stone statues. Instantly, as the things in the kiln's mouths pulsed, they all shot out for five-colored beams of light from their mouths, soaring into the sky, converging at a single point in the air. Then a brilliant light burst forth. A massive, colorless sphere of light materialized high in the sky. Then the space around the sphere of light twisted and warped. After an earth-shattering boom, it suddenly burst open. A five-colored spiritual light was blindingly brilliant. For a moment, it obscured the entire altar. An astonishingly intense fluctuation of spiritual energy filled the sky above, rushing towards the cultivators on the altar like a monstrous wave, and swept over them. Even a cultivator like Wei Wuya, upon sensing the intensity of the spiritual energy fluctuation, found his expression changing involuntarily. The others couldn't help but retreat several steps, hurriedly mobilizing the spiritual power in their bodies to resist. Fortunately, this explosive process was very short. In the blink of an eye, the radiant glow subsided, and the spiritual energy dissipated. Only then did the people from the ghost spirit sect feel relieved, and they hurriedly looked up into the sky. But when they saw the situation in the sky clearly, everyone was greatly astonished. Wei Wuya's face, in particular, turned ashen. He turned his head, stared at him, and said in an ice-cold voice, "This is the entrance to the ethereal spirit garden you mentioned." Over 1,000 feet above the altar, a lake of light over 300 feet long had appeared there. This lake of light was a vast expanse of white. At its widest point, it was a full 40 to 50 feet wide and shaped like a crescent moon. It was actually a rare, giant spatial rift. It's just that the rift was previously concealed by some kind of restriction seal. This is why so many cultivators with great divine abilities are gathered here. Yet no one noticed that such a terrifying existence was in the sky above. Could this be the so-called entrance to the Ling Miao Yuan? Looking at the spatial distortion and warping visible to the naked eye, even a master with divine abilities like Wei Wuya would absolutely not have the courage to just rush into this rift. After all, the shearing force of this spatial power is not something cultivators of this realm can withstand. No wonder Wuya couldn't help but fly into a rage.